When someone that we love cheats, it doesn't just break our hearts. People tend to think, oh, it's a heartbreaking situation, yes, but in addition to that, it fractures the very thing that intimacy depends on, and that is emotional safety. There's a psychologist by the name of Dr. Esther Perel, and she's the author of State of Affairs. And what she said has really left an impression on me. She said that the victim of the affair is not always the victim of the relationship, and we're going to dive deep into that theory. You're listening to the Enlightened Path, where healing meets wholeness and honesty becomes a form of self-love. I am your host, Hadassah. I'm a life coach, I'm a hypnotherapist, and today we're going to be opening one of the most tender wounds in human connection, and we're going to be taking the time to talk about how to regain emotional intimacy after a partner has cheated. We'll be diving deep into this topic. This is something that still isn't being addressed accordingly, and I feel like this is so important for us to talk about at this time. I'll be using psychology, spiritual insights, as well as relationship theories that I've learned and I've incorporated in my coaching practice, as well as real stories to help you find clarity, courage, and maybe even closure if that is something that you're seeking at this time. Let's talk about the emotional wounds of betrayal. Now, cheating isn't always about the other person being better or more attractive. It has nothing to do with that. Oftentimes, it reveals something much more deep-rooted about the person of themselves or within the connection of the two persons. Sometimes it speaks to the disconnection, disjoint between the union. Sometimes it speaks to avoidance of conflict and someone seeking validation outside of that relationship. And sometimes it also speaks to fear of vulnerability. But make no mistake, betrayal of itself is a trauma. So according to this trauma expert, and some of you may know the book, it's called The Body Keeps the Score. I don't know his name, to pronounce his name properly, but I'm going to try. His name is Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, right? And he has the book, The Body Keeps the Score. And he speaks about betrayal, how betrayal can trigger the same psychological patterns just as PTSD. And who understand PTSD, you know that your nervous system of itself become dysregulated. That is the same thing that happens in a relationship when somebody feels betrayed. The person now sees closeness associated with danger, especially if they have trusted you. And this pretty much shows up in the connection, how the connection moves forward. For example, you flinch at their very touch, like the closeness. Every time they come next to you, you tend to want to resent them. Their touch feels despicable to your skin. And what you find happening as well is that you tend to overanalyze every word. Every single word that they're now saying becomes something to come into question. And outside of that external thing, you no longer feel safe in your own body. You're constantly in a state of fight or flight when you're around that person. That is why it is said that betrayal can give similar symptoms to PTSD. And you feeling the way you're feeling in your body, in your mental state, is not a weakness. This is just the way your body is showing up for you. This is just how your body is protecting you. So the very first thing that you have to do is give yourself the permission. Nobody should give you a timeline or a deadline as to when you're supposed to be healing. Give yourself permission to feel every single thing, to feel the rage, to feel the grief, to feel the numbness, the confusion. Give yourself the permission to feel everything, because these emotions are not obstacles. right? They're not something that is preventing you from becoming close with the person. These emotions are helping you to see that I am out of alignment with myself, and the most that I can do right now is draw close to me and feed myself the very thing that I deserve that I didn't get from someone. It's to bring you back home to yourself. When a client of mine asked me to cover this topic for him, he said, can you please do a topic about how emotional intimacy can be rebuilt after your partner has cheated? And I told him, yes, I'm going to do it. But the question that I asked myself immediately after he asked that question was, can emotional intimacy be rebuilt? Because let's be real, some couples do recover nicely and they go on to having beautiful, wholesome relationships, but some just don't. Some just don't, regardless if they stay together or not. Some just don't. But you, whether you stay or you go, it doesn't matter. You deserve to rebuild intimacy with yourself first. That is the key thing. However, if you both choose to try again after that, here are some grounded research-based steps, because I've had to do a lot of research for this topic that can be utilized to help you rebuild. Step 1, you have to establish safety before closeness. Gottman Institute research on marital stability shows that emotional attuneness, not passion, is the foundation of long-term intimacy. And that is why it's important, even at the initial stage of any relationship, to build that emotional attunement within the relationship for you and your partner before you become intimate with that person. You want to build that emotional connection first. You want to ask yourself a few things. If you're someone who your partner has cheated, do I feel emotionally safe here? That's a question you need to ask yourself. Can I express my anger and be heard and not silenced? Because what happens sometimes, people may think that you have a timeline for healing and by now you should get over it. That is not true. Once you have cheated, you have to know that you now carry a responsibility to help your partner to move through a difficult time, and there should be no deadline. You should be grateful enough that they have decided that they will continue this relationship with you, because many cannot continue after that. Now, just a practical example, right? Monica and David went to therapy after infidelity. They were told that sex is off the table until emotional trust is restored. For 3 months, they only work on safe conversations. Now, the lesson behind doing something like that: intimacy begins with inner safety, not any acts of external activity. So by just talking for a prolonged period without the sex can help the person to regain that emotional closeness with their partner. Step 2 is radical honesty and transparency. Now, there's another theory that says vulnerability is the blueprint of connection and the deathbed of shame, right? So the cheating partner must become radically transparent, not to be controlled, but to show that they're no longer hiding anything. You gotta open up yourself. Allow your partner to ask as many questions as possible that they need surrounding the situation that has occurred. Now, a real life application to this is this might look like sharing phone password. This is not a punishment, but it's a gesture of voluntary openness. Like, hey, this is my phone here. You can have access to it, and so on. Just so you can start to rebuild back that closeness. Step 3, name the emotional truth without weaponizing it. Now, insights from Harville Hendricks, Imago Therapy, he says that many conflicts are really about unmet childhood needs playing out in adult relationships. And even though we're talking about a romantic relationships here, the same applies to working environments and relationships with friends. This same unmet childhood needs, it shows up in all aspects of our lives. And I did cover the reason for that when I talk about attachment theory, and I covered the 4 attachment style. Now, instead of saying I could never trust you again, remember, you have made a decision to continue this relationship with this individual. So instead of saying I could never trust you again, you need to try saying, right, when you betray me, it felt like I didn't matter. That is naming the emotion, right? And that opened the old wound I've carried since I was young. And this may be somebody who is aware of themselves. But some people may not know that it's actually a trigger, but they can also say, what does it feel like? When you betrayed me, it felt like X, Y, and Z. Do not say I could never trust you again, because even though your partner is the one on the other side who may have done the wrong, if you decide to move forward, you have to move forward where you in a space where you can both now trust each other and feel happy, healthy, and wholesome again. Now, there's a powerful outcome for naming the emotion, and that moves you from blaming. You don't just blame the person, but you're actually sharing the healing, because they're now understanding how this has affected you, and you're now in a position to verbalize how this has affected you. Now, step 4 to healing is use micro moments of connection. And I would suggest using micro moments of connection because your partner is going to have micro moments of reflection anyway. Sometimes in the middle of watching a television show, sometimes you see a perfume, sometimes your phone ring, something can happen and that can trigger them. So you don't want to wait for grand gestures. You want to use micro moments of connection. And this is something that was taught by the same Gottman Institute, Dr. John Gottman, and he said strong couples experience a 5-to-1 ratio of positive to negative interaction. Right, so in a healthy relationship, that means that there's 5 positive and maybe 1 negative. So you know now that if you do 1 negative, you potentially have to do 5 positive things to balance that out. And what you can do on a daily basis, you can try a daily 5-minute check-in. Even if you're at work, your partner is at home, you can do a 5-minute check-in. Hey, I'm just checking you crossed my mind, and I just wanted to know if you eat. I just wanted to know if you're okay. I just wanted to know how you're coping today. I want to let you know that I love you and I miss you. Right? Another thing that really can connect couples is eye contact without phone. You can just sit with your partner and you do eye gazing. That's pretty much what it's called. It really helps to increase connection. And saying thank you for the small things, it shows gratitude and appreciation within the relationship. Intimacy isn't a grand gesture. It's small, consistent attitude and behaviors that says, hey, I'm letting you know I want you, I love you, I'm interested in you, and I'm sorry. Now, this segment of the podcast, we're going to talk about reclaiming wholeness with or without relationship. Reclaiming wholeness with or without the relationship. Because the relationship is one thing, but without the relationships, it's also a thing, and that is okay. Because what if the person doesn't change? What if you give them a second chance and they don't change? What if they minimize your pain, or they say, just get over it. It's been some months already. Just get over it. Then this becomes a sacred invitation for you to now choose yourself. At this point, you have to choose yourself. Now, there's a spiritual teacher by the name of Matt Lickiter, right? And he writes, and I remember him saying, we are never really broken, right? Everything that we're doing, we're just trying to protect the parts of ourselves that were never truly held, or the parts of ourselves that were never truly met. None of us are ever really broken. So sometimes when you see people behaving a particular way, it has nothing to do with you. It's just them really just trying to pull the pieces of themselves together that was never truly held, or those feelings that were never really met. Now, what you have to realize is that if they don't hold space for you, that is okay. You have to do the work. You have to do the work. And let me just give you a short example. There's a woman that I work with that stayed for 6 months post-affair with her husband. She did all the inner work. She went in deep into her healing journey, but he did nothing. He expected time to just heal the wounds. You know, there's the theory that says time heals all wounds. Yes, it does. But at the end of the day, you have to be intentional about your healing for that to happen. Now, he didn't do anything. Now, what she did, she chose to leave. She chose to walk away from that relationship, and not out of revenge, but out of reverence for her own self. And sometimes we be placed in a position so that we can now finally, for once in our goddamn lives, choose ourselves. And now she's in a relationship. She's in a happy, healthy, wholesome relationship where vulnerability is not a liability, it is loved. They share openly. There is no privacy with this and that, and you can't see this and you can't see that, and this is this person, this is that. None of that is there. Now she's in a happy, healthy relationship. But in order for her to get there, she first had to take the responsibility of choosing herself. Take this with you today. And always reaffirm yourself. And you can say, I am worthy of a love that doesn't make me beg for safety. So betrayal might have cracked open your heart, yes, but cracks are where light enters. You're not trying to go back to how it was. You're learning to rise into how it can be. That is what you're doing with every experience, with every encounter. You're seeking that clarity. You're seeking clearer pathways for yourself where you can express yourself with more truth. So even if this happens to you, remember that you can always tell yourself that I am worthy of a love that does not make me beg for safety. And if you're in a situation where you feel unsafe, remember what I just said. Say this to yourself and continue to reaffirm your position that I am worthy of a love that does not make me beg for safety. And whether you rise together with this person or whether you rise alone, a win is a win because you still rise. So if this podcast stirs something in you, share it with someone who's healing. If you haven't subscribed to my channel as yet, subscribe, leave a comment. And if you're ready to reclaim your worth or you're having a difficult time with your relationship, let's connect and let me make an assessment and see if I can help you. Until next time, stay rooted, stay real, and keep walking on the enlightened path. I love you guys so much. Do take care.